Well. It's going from bad to worse. It's going from worse to horrible for Liverpool in the Premier League this season. 7 losses in their last 8 games. That is relegation form. I mean, obviously they're not going to get relegated, but that is a form that a manager should be looking at the door. He should be looking at the door, looking to get sacked, because I can guarantee you if a team in the top 4 or in the top 5 are expected to be in that range lost 7 of their last 8 games in the Premier League, they would be getting the sack. And I look at Arne Slot, and I don't know. I don't think Liverpool are really going to sack him because, his first season was good, regardless of the questions that might have been asked, and the fact that it was a team that Jurgen Klopp had built. And, he just basically inherited a team. And now that he has the resources to build his own team, he isn't able to get the results. A lot of questions are going to be asked of Arne Slot, but I don't think Liverpool are really going to pull the trigger when it comes to, relieving him of his duties. But there's some topics I do want to get into the match reaction here. I think this was actually Salah's best game, which does say a lot about Salah's season, this season for Liverpool. This was Salah's best game, although it wasn't, obviously vintage Mohamed Salah, but this was the best game I've seen Salah play this season. I mean, I'm having a look at the last 7 results for Liverpool on screen. Lost to Crystal Palace, lost to Chelsea, lost to United, lost to Brentford, won against Aston Villa, lost to Manchester City, lost to Nottingham Forest. I mean, it's honestly so bad. And in the last 8 games, they've scored only 5 goals, I believe. I really don't know what the solution is for Liverpool. But I think, as I said earlier, questions do have to be asked of Arne Slot, because going into this game, the lineup was questionable. I don't know why Alexander Isak is starting over Ekitike. I think Ekitike has proven that he is the better striker option. I don't know why Kerkez is back in the team. Again, so many questions. I don't know why he keeps picking these players that have proven not to be up to it this season. Slowly you can integrate them into the team and they can eventually become players you can rely on. But you need to use the players that have proven that they can actually deal with the pressure, because there's a lot of pressure on Liverpool this season. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about if Liverpool might be able to or still have the quality to win the league. At the moment, we're talking about if Liverpool have the quality to get top 4. Forget winning the league. I don't think Liverpool might get top 4 this season if they keep continuing the way they're playing, for the rest of the season. And the team looks clueless. I saw a conversation online where someone was saying maybe Liverpool players are down in twos. Maybe they've realized that Arne Slot is not the man that's going to take them forward, and they're not putting in the effort. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that might be the case in Liverpool, but I think it's a lot. It really is a lot. Dominic Szoboszlai again playing well. I think, he's definitely going to be the player of the season, but that's not really going to mean much this season for Liverpool. Nothing is really going well to be crowning anyone player of the season. I think he's the only one this season that can really come out of this game with his head held high. And I mean, the refereeing decisions, I don't really like talking about the VAR in the Premier League, because I think it has gotten to a level that the Premier League fans have kind of gotten used to it, because it's so consistently inconsistent that they can't really say anything. The pundits are never going to talk about it. The media is never really going to talk about it, because the PGMOL are just like, kind of, I don't want to go that far, but I think it's not a topic I want to spend too much time on, because it's something that has happened so much that I'm just like, it's not something, as football fans we should get used to, but it's something that has happened. So we just gotta have to deal with it, because I don't think it's going to change. This is not the first time we've seen controversial and inconsistent decisions going against teams. It's something that's been happening for a while now in the Premier League. So it's something we're just going to have to, deal with in the Premier League. I think Liverpool in the first half had some decent chances. Gakpo was playing well, had some really good chances, but he didn't take those chances. One thing in the Premier League is when you have chances, you have to take those chances. you have to take those opportunities when you do. But it feels like Liverpool were a little bit too tidy, trying to pass the ball into the back of the net. There are some chances I think they probably should have shot where they were, taking that extra touch, looking for that extra pass, and it didn't come off for them. And we are where we are now. And this was a thumping. This was a thumping from Nottingham Forest to Liverpool. I think if the game ended 1-0, you'd probably say, maybe Nottingham Forest. It was a smash and grab for Nottingham Forest. But I think this 3-0, it honestly and genuinely represents the game in the way it went. I think Nottingham Forest were the better team. Again, it's an issue. If you're coming up against Nottingham Forest, at home, it's not as if Liverpool went to Nottingham Forest home. It was at Anfield. And for Liverpool to look like the second best team today, it's something that, as a Liverpool fan, you have to look at and, call it a concern. I think it really is. Igor Jesus, the striker of Nottingham Forest, he looks very good technically on the ball. I think he's a player that when he starts to score goals, you can see him to be, that player that's going to be very crucial for Nottingham Forest going forward. I want to give Nottingham Forest their flowers now before we do talk about Liverpool, because I think that's obviously going to be the main topic, but I don't want it to look like Liverpool just played badly and Nottingham Forest didn't deserve the win or they didn't play well enough to get a win. I think Nottingham Forest played well. Elliot Anderson, I understand the hype now. I wasn't the biggest fan of Elliot Anderson before because I haven't really watched a Nottingham Forest game, but watching him today against Liverpool, I definitely understand the hype now. He's a good player. He's got that engine. He looks like, I don't know the right player to really compare him with. I want to say Valverde, but Valverde doesn't have the passing range that, Anderson has. I think he looks like a Pedri, to be very honest with you. The energy and, intensity he puts into his game, he looks like the English version of Pedri, which is very, it's reaching. It's a very far reach to say Elliot Anderson looks like Pedri. He's got that. He's got that in his bag. He's got the passing range in his bag. He's got the technical ability on him in his bag. I think maybe when it comes to dribbling and taking on players, he doesn't have that yet, but he's got that intensity. And he's, when he moves on to a bigger team, I think we might start having that conversation of he's definitely one of the best midfielders in Europe. But maybe not yet. But yeah. I think Igor Jesus played very well. Murillo played very well. Matt Sells, Golden Glove winner last season. I'm not too surprised that he played very well. Morgan Gibbs-White. I think these are all players that you look at and think maybe next season they move on to better teams. Morgan Gibbs-White was supposed to go to Tottenham this season, didn't really go through. But you look at that, those players: Morgan Gibbs-White, Elliot Anderson, Murillo, Matt Sells. I think Matt Sells is a lot older than these players. But you look at those three players and you're like, yeah, these guys, in the next few months, they probably should be going on to bigger teams, playing in the Champions League. I'd like to see Elliot Anderson in the Champions League. Same with Morgan Gibbs-White. Same with Murillo. I actually wanted Real Madrid to go on and get Murillo from Nottingham Forest, but it is what it is. But yeah, those are players that definitely you look at and think, your players want to, have in your team for the future. I think Sean Dyche, always a good manager. So he's a simple manager. He comes into a team, sets up a team's defense. The defense is always a strong foundation for Sean Dyche in his teams. In Burnley, we saw that as well. Everton, we saw that as well. And he's coming to Nottingham Forest and he's always setting up the defense as a strong foundation. And then he builds the team on, based on that. And a clean sheet today up against Liverpool always, is going to highlight that for sure, for Nottingham Forest. And I think, as I said, despite the bad controversial decisions that went against Liverpool, just like in the Manchester City game, regardless of these bad decisions, I think Nottingham Forest wholeheartedly deserved the win. It wasn't like the bad decisions prevented Liverpool from winning. I don't think Liverpool deserved anything from this game. Nottingham Forest deserved all 3 points. And yeah, it's something that Arne Slot is going to have to look at. The Liverpool board are going to have to look at, because as I said, it's not beyond the realms of possibilities that Arne Slot gets sacked. Mourinho at Chelsea won the Premier League, next season wasn't doing well, got sacked. So I think when it starts to get worse, which I think it is, I think 7 losses in your last 8 games is atrocious. I don't think that's something to scoff at. I think 7 losses in your last 8 games is something that you really, really need to look at and say, you know what? We either make a stand here and support the manager, or we go in a different direction. As I was saying, Liverpool looked clueless. Like, I don't know what Ekitike was doing on the bench. It didn't look like they knew how to create chances, especially in the second half. They hadn't had a shot on target in the second half, apart from, I think, in the 80th minute, where it was a shot and Murillo came on to block the shot. It was atrocious. Isak should not be starting. Isak should not be starting a game for Liverpool this season until he proves that he can actually compete with Ekitike for the starting spot in the team. When you have a striker in the team that's spending more than 75 minutes on the game, and he's kind of, you're keeping him longer on the pitch, you'd kind of be thinking, okay, maybe he's not getting the ball, maybe they're not. He wasn't doing anything when he did get the ball. He had the ball multiple of times, wasn't able to do anything. Wasn't able to do anything at all. And as to why he keeps starting over Ekitike, who has shown that he's playing well, had a very good international break, comes back and is sitting on the bench for Alexander Isak. I'm sure Ekitike is, he's looking at it thinking, what more do I have to do to play in this team? Honestly, what more does Ekitike have to do to get a start in this team over Alexander Isak? And as I said earlier, although Ekitike is a player that Arne Slot has got, I said this in one of the match reactions for Liverpool, that I think Arne Slot is in a position where he feels like he needs to get his players, the players that he has purchased, to actually start performing on the field before he thinks he's successful as a manager. It doesn't matter if you take off players that have performed for you last season and get results. I think at the moment, Arne Slot just needs to get results. I think he needs to forget about, I brought players in and I need them to be performing, and he just needs to get results. And at the moment, he needs to pick a starting 11 that can get him results. And I think that's Robertson, that's Van Dijk, that's Konate, and that's, Conor Bradley or Szoboszlai are the right. Midfield, whoever is good in the midfield, you put him there. And front three, bench Mohamed Salah for his own sake. For his own sake and the sake of Liverpool at the moment, bench Mohamed Salah. Bring Chiesa on. Let Chiesa start a game in the Premier League. Ekitike up top. Gakpo on the left wing. Something that's going to give you results. A consistent team that Liverpool fans can look at and say, you know what? This is a team that can get results. And if you play that team and you don't get results, then you start to look at, I think maybe, you go in a different direction in terms of managers. Because at the moment, as I said earlier, let's have a look at the Premier League table right now. At the moment, Liverpool are 11th in the league, 18 points. Crystal Palace are 4th in the league, 20 points. It's 2 points. But at the moment, it doesn't look like Liverpool can get anything. And if the gap keeps getting bigger, we might, forget the league. The league title is way out of Liverpool. I mean, Arsenal would have to battle the league. Arsenal, Chelsea, and Manchester City would have to battle the positions that they find themselves in so badly that Liverpool find a way to win the league. The league is out of the question. Top 4 at the moment is what Liverpool have to be looking at, because Tottenham are going for the top 4. Manchester United are going for the top 4. Aston Villa, they wouldn't mind getting the top 4. Brighton as well. Crystal Palace, 5 teams, all fighting for like 2 spots, top 4 and 5th. And you never know, maybe English teams don't do as well in the Champions League or in Europe. At the moment, we can take Liverpool out. I don't think you're going to go far in the Champions League. Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester City, Tottenham, those 4 teams are in the Champions League. Maybe they go a little bit far. I don't think Tottenham will go that far. Maybe Arsenal, Chelsea, and Manchester City, but you never know. They can get injuries and it could drop them out. So you can't really rely on the fact that top 5 might get you Champions League football. So 5 teams at the moment, all fighting for the 4th position in the league. And Liverpool, out of those 4 teams, look like the only team that don't have what it takes to actually get that position in the league. So it's very concerning. As I said, it might not be too late, or it might not be beyond the realms of possibilities to actually move away from Arne Slot. But the question is, if you move away from Arne Slot, who's the next option? Who's the next manager? Because there's not a lot of good managers in the manager market. I think Nagelsmann is there. The Bournemouth manager is there, but who's to say the Bournemouth manager leaves his job to take over a very tough Liverpool job? Because if Arne Slot gets sacked now, the next manager who's going to come in has to hit the ground running. He has to literally go on a 5-game winning streak to get Liverpool back on track, to get top 4 at least. And it's very, very difficult to see how things go. And, it kind of takes me back to the start of the season where Liverpool were playing. They won their first 5 games. And the question literally was, how are they winning these games when they're not playing well? And, you look at it now and I think they're playing worse. I think Liverpool were not playing well in their first 5 games of the season. But now I think they're playing worse. I think they're actually playing worse now. It's very concerning. And I think it's going to be interesting over the next few days for Liverpool, because again, they have Premier League, they have Champions League football. Let's see what they have in the Champions League in their next match. PSV. If they lose against PSV, I think it might be over for Arne Slot. I think the Liverpool board might look at it and say, you know what, let's have damage control and let's, get rid of the manager and look for a new manager, because I really, really do think that it's going to get worse from here. West Ham at the moment, West Ham look like they want to, start picking up some form. I think 3 wins in a row for West Ham. So some tough games coming up, some really tough games coming up for Liverpool. Questions definitely do have to be asked of Arne Slot. Questions have to be asked of the Liverpool players as well. I think players played very badly. Alexander Isak played badly. Kerkez has still been playing badly. Haven't seen the best of Konate this season. Haven't seen the best of Van Dijk this season. As I said, the only one that can walk out of this game with his head held high is Dominic Szoboszlai, and that is not good. In a team of 12 players or 11 players, you want to see at least 3-4 players, even if you're not playing well, you want to see at least 3-4 players that you can look at and say, you know what, let's take positives from this. But it's only Dominic Szoboszlai, as I said, who can really come out of this game with some positives. But yeah, let me know what you guys do think in the comment section below about this whole situation with Liverpool. Do you think Arne Slot is going to get sacked? Do you think you're going to back Arne Slot? What do you think is the solution for Liverpool? Because it looks like it's only going to get worse from here. There are some very, very tough games coming up for Liverpool, in the coming weeks, and it looks like it's really going to get tough from here. But yeah, any feedback from you guys would be greatly appreciated.